You know the most underrated perk in the whole entire game of Dead by Daylight? I'll give you a hint. It's not for survivors. It's also not even for killers. It's actually for your better good. Wait, what? Technically, getting a good perk built for survivor and killer is for our better good. Okay, but I mean better good as in you. Literally, you and your life. Your biggest dreams and aspirations. Your mental well being and your fantasy lifestyle. That perk technically isn't even in the game, but it's called your personal main. But let's build up to how I even discovered this in the first place and how hopefully it can help you all out. Everyone's got their own mains in the game, either a survivor or killer, or perhaps both. For me, well, I was searching for that for quite some time. Well, maybe not for that long. I found out who my survivor and killer mains are nonetheless. Here, let me start up by telling you who my survivor main is. Yui Kimura. Why? I not only like her aesthetics, where she's a badass motorcyclist and reps really cool logos and colors, and her outfits are visually entertaining, but she also wears an Attack on Titan cosmetic of Mikasa Ackerman. If you've been following my video essays for quite a while, you'll know I'm quite a fan of Mikasa Ackerman, so my survivor main was obvious. But what about killer? This one of course was harder to find, because unlike survivor, every killer has different abilities and can't work as a team to try and win. But I found 3 that I rock with all the time, and warning, 2 of these killers are apparently hated by most of the Dead by Daylight community for different reasons, but whatever, going over that is not for this video. Instead, I'll quickly go over how the Nightmare, Spirit, and Skull Merchant ended up being my mains. I'd say the Nightmare is my number 1 killer main. Why? Well, for one thing, I was a giant Freddy Krueger fan growing up. I mean, quite literally, I'd dress up as Freddy in little short films my brothers and I would make at an early age, and thank God I can't find them anymore right now. I watched every Freddy Krueger movie possible. I have a Funko Pop of him, dressed up as him for Halloween twice, you get the idea. But also, I personally thought his gameplay sounded fun. The idea of transporting survivors to my own dream world is creative, and putting down puddles of blood to slow survivors down and teleporting to each generator just overall sounded fun. Spirit? For one thing, I love Japanese aesthetics, so playing as a Japanese girl overall sounds entertaining. 2, I'm always down for a good paranormal scare. The idea of floating around the map invisible and jump scaring survivors is exhilarating to me. She also helps me get better at listening and being aware of my surroundings in general, as that's a big weakness of mine. Her cosmetics are cool too. And Skull Merchant? Well, like I said, being aware of my surroundings is a weakness of mine, so it sorta helps when I have a killer in which her ability is to literally help you track down survivors and tell you where to head, but I also am a huge fan of futuristic, cyberpunk aesthetics, and she kinda has that, with the radars, neon lights, high-tech gear, all of it. So, I would continue the rest of the analogy, but we'll continue it later because I think this is a good stopping point. Why did I mention all of this? Because one thing I have learned as an aspiring writer and overall creator of entertainment, I need to find my strengths. What do I like? What am I good at? What makes me excited to try and get better at? Well, I know I like sci-fi. I know I'm pretty good at writing romance stories. Anytime I get a chance to make a story involving one of, if not both, of those things, it gets me excited, and I want to not only make the damn story already, but it excites me to know there's ways I can improve those things as well. And if you're someone with goals, dreams, and many things you'd love to accomplish, why not start by finding what you're good at, what you're interested in, what you're driven to be better at, and study more of? I mean, there's gotta be something, right? So let's just make an assumption here. I don't know you, of course, but let's say you're watching this with no clear idea on what it is you want to be in life. Well, actually, you do, because let's say you're very good at drawing. You like drawing. Do you like learning more about it and wanting to improve it? If so, then you just found your personal main. Your main in this one life you got is being an artist. That's just an example, of course, but hopefully I'm making sense here. You've probably already thought about your personal main right now. Hopefully it enlightened you to want to start doing it. You got one, and I'm happy for you. Oh, and by the way, yes, it is okay to have more than one personal main. You know you're at your absolute best when drawing, but hey, wait a second, you like dancing too. I mean, it doesn't hurt to keep doing that and learn more as well. You don't have to have just one personal main. Now, I don't know if I'd go overboard and have an overload of personal mains, just like how you probably don't main every survivor and every killer in Dead by Daylight. There's either one or a select few that fits just right for you. Well, it's surprisingly not so different for your own personal self. But before you get too excited and want to start taking action in this personal main you discovered about yourself, can I just tell you one last piece of advice here before we leave? It also finishes the rest of the analogy I was saying earlier, in case you're wondering. I had to learn a bit of a valuable lesson when it comes to my Dead by Daylight mains. Don't give up on them. No, really, don't give up on it. Unless you truly feel in your heart there's something better for you. Otherwise, don't give up on it. When I was first starting to get the hang of Dead by Daylight and I found my mains, my rounds as killer was all handy dandy sunshine and rainbows, and I know why. It took a while to find, but I had found a formula that worked. I set up a great perk and add-on build, and I started to get the overall gist of the killer's abilities. But it didn't last forever. I play the game mostly in custom matches with my family, so of course, the more they play my killer mains, the more they'll figure me out. They'll start to pick up on the add-ons and perks I bring and how to counter that. And they'll start to pick up on the way I play as my killer in general. And I started to fail. A lot. In the beginning of the game, all I ever used was aura perks, because I had such a hard time tracking down survivors. I needed help in knowing where they are. And I didn't really have any skill, per se. I just follow wherever the game tells me the auras are at. But once my opponents turn on perks like Distortion and figure out how to loop me and chase, I'm in trouble. What worked for me before clearly is not working now. I still feel very passionate about my killer mains, I still have fun playing as them, but I also want to start winning. I'll need to figure out something new. So I said, say less. I won't spoil my new plans too much as my family is watching this, but I've put together some new add-ons and perk builds and learned new ways to play as my killer mains in general. I wouldn't say I'm killing it now per se, but do I consistently have good nights as my killer mains? For the most part, yeah. And I'm not going to get into my survivor main because honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how to even be a good survivor in the first place. Let's instead talk about you and your personal mains. Just like how you had to find the perfect survivor or killer main and the perfect build for your character, it's the same with your life goals, man. Find your personal main, but really, study it. Find a formula that works for you in order to get better and to get out there. Your formula to get better is like your build, basically. And yes, this takes time. You'll need to f*** around and find out, basically. Experiment, study, take risk, whatever you gotta do. And I'm sure you'll find something that flows for you. Your personal main is more than just an entertaining activity for you. If you truly care about it, you gotta find the secret recipe. And be low-key about it, so that way none of your competitors find out and try to stop you. Cause just like Dead by Daylight, you do have opponents. Sadly, people, or even things, can try to stop you. But if you have a groove, you'll probably win a lot. By the way, not everyone and everything is against you, by the way. I'm simply just stating it's out there. And if things work out, great. But do always keep in mind, it probably won't always be pretty. The world will evolve, and your old way of doing things won't quite work as well. But if you truly love your personal main or mains, just evolve with the world. Figure out new builds, and I'm sure you'll still be successful. So with that, I wanted to say two things. One, thank you, Dead by Daylight, for not only giving me lifelong memories I'll never forget, but for teaching me a valuable lesson that made me look at the world in a completely cool and different way. And second, for you all watching this, I wish you the best of luck in finding your personal main or mains, and to never give up on it no matter what. Don't be hooked in the game, be hooked to personal growth.